Welcome to the iOS PayGate sample code video. First, you're going to navigate to the folder where you extracted the sample code for iOS. Then you're going to locate the XC workspace file and you're going to double click that. So first, you might need to make sure that you have CocoaPods installed. If you haven't installed it before, you're going to copy this code into your terminal. In your terminal, you're going to navigate to your directory. The first part is actually a global command, so it doesn't really matter where you run it from. It doesn't have to be the local directory. And then you put in sudo gem install CocoaPods, and you'll have to type your password because this is a sudo command. Might take a little bit longer on yours than mine. If you don't have Xcode installed and Ruby, etc., which is default as part of your developer tools, then you might need to do that first. But generally you're going to have gem installed already, so you should be able to install CocoaPods. Okay, let's clear the terminal. Now the next command is pod install and then pod update. With pod install first, that's going to install the pod file, and then I'll say pod update. This will update the pods to the latest versions. I've noticed that sometimes I've had issues with pods install on a fresh install when I haven't done pod update. So try to do those two things. In this case, I've already done all of this, so it was quite quick. But it might take a bit longer on your computer, and obviously depending on your internet connection. So here we go back to Xcode, and we're going to now say build. So the basic app, we've included a few features for you. We've got a slide and menu. We have a keyboard handler, which doesn't show really on the sample, on the simulator with the setting that I've got set here. But on a normal device, you can see that. We've got single vault request, we've got follow-up request, and we've got message type requests. So the first thing we're going to do is to do a card vault. So we're going to add a test card here. It's just a default test card, and the card expiry date, which is month, year. So I got 12/2020 to card vault. Here you can see the request and the response. And we've put it in the SOAP syntax so that you can see what it looks like and so that it matches the docs. And you'll be able to work with this later as you develop the app according to your business logic. So here you can see it says completed, and there we've got the Vault ID. Now this is what we're going to use to be able to do all of the Vault features. So we now go to Lookup Vault, we go to the Vault ID, and we put in the card vault. We say do Lookup Vault. We can see that it was completed, and then we've got the card number. It's not going to be a full card number because that's not necessary. And you'll know that vaulting and token works. So now if you wanted to delete this vault, you go to delete vault and you put in that vault ID from the previous step. You say do delete vault, and you can see that that card is now deleted. To verify this, we can go back to lookup vault and enter that same vault ID. Do lookup vault, and there's no response. So it was successful. The follow-up requests you can query, void, refund, settlement, etc. So this is if you've done a card payment and you're wanting to do particular actions based on the pay request ID. So you might want to void a transaction, you might want to refund, you might want to process a settlement. This is all based on the pay request ID. Let's run through a card payment here. So in this case, we'll add the default card. And again, month, year. Let's do the request. This will open up a web view for the 3D secure step. I'll have to say submit. If it's motor, you won't get this step. It's busy processing for us. And then this would post back to your backend, depending on the settings you set. You could capture the response from the web view, and you could handle that if you want as well. But here's the response down here. to give an example of what happened. In this case, as you can see, we put in a default address. This is a sample example address. You'd need to set up your address or the customer's address, and you'd need to have a web service set up. This is where you'd put the URL to your web service, but you'd need to also have a web service in place, which you'd need to write yourself based on your business logic. Let's see over here, let's copy the pay request ID. We'll need to use this to keep track of any further operations. So like for instance a query, we can put in our pay request ID and we'd say request. And there's the response there. With the transaction details as approved, we have the auth code. If you wanted to void or refund or settlement, you'd use the pay request ID. Let's do a web payment here just to show you how this differs from a card payment. So card payments are for all kinds of processing. Web payments are more for online, easy handling. It'll open up the web view and you enter your card details at that point. If you're doing a card point, you'll probably want to authorize or do your settlements or refunds within your process flow. But you would really capture card details on the device, whereas the web payment, you capture the details are actually captured inside of the web view. So here's where we enter the details. This is actually inside the web view. You can see it looks a bit different to the card payment. Here's the 3D secure page, also looks a little different. Does the same kind of functionality. And here we've got the little note. Again, you would want to handle the response. You might use the web view, you might capture a response, or maybe you just wait on the back end, on the notify or query, depending on what you've set up for your back end. Make sure that you do post your correct notify and redirect URLs inside of the request. You don't only have a copy of the transaction in the device itself, because if something happens locally or maybe the browser times out, then that information might not come through and you might have a very disgruntled customer. So you always want to keep all of your details and transaction details in the cloud, in your own cloud on your backend. Here we've also got token payments. We've got the token and the token description, and you just refer to the PayGate documentation for more details on tokenization. So the basic interface is built here, but consult the documentation for how to use a token and token description. That's it. You have now set up your sample code correctly.